Hi. So as David mentioned, because of COVID, we pushed off our last annual meeting. And for those of you who attended that one, you know that was just a few months ago. I gave a report during that meeting for the, let's see, 2019, 2020 year end. So what I'm going to do now is just build upon that same report. So what you see in front of you are all the presentations and all the things we've done starting in July 2019. The ones that we've done just in this past year, 2020 to 2021, are at the end and they're in darker print there. So I'm just going to go through some of these. In compiling this list, I was really impressed with the amount that we were able to accomplish. The majority of it certainly did happen before the pandemic, but I think we've still done quite a bit since then. So as far as groups that have come in, you can see that we hosted an ASA reunion, a Salvation Army group, and we've also been the start for a couple different walks that happened recently. People were using our space as sort of a registration, and then their walks would go off around Devens, and they would come back and visit the museum and see what we had inside. As far as presentations go, I won't go through all of them, but just a few of them were Unfolding King Philip's War. We had a POW MIA, chair dedication. We did our annual miniature war games both years, but this past year was our first virtual war games. So we'll see what this October will bring. We had a presentation about botany and plants and their role during World War II. We celebrated the 75th anniversary of the Battle of the Bulge, and we had a few veterans speak to us as well. As mentioned, we had our World War II victory dance in March of 2020, right before the pandemic hit, and that was such a great success. I'm hoping that we'll be able to repeat that in the next year or so. Just in this past year, we had a recognition ceremony for Colonel Lowndes, who was a Massachusetts Marine during Vietnam. And we had a visit from some of the Marines stationed here at Devens who provided us with a color guard for that ceremony. So that was a great connection for us to make. As mentioned, Peter, representing the Devens Enterprise Commission, gave a program on the global future of Devens, and hopefully we will have that uploaded soon for everyone to see. Myself, I presented a couple versions of a program about the 1918 Spanish flu epidemic called The Unseen Foe, and that was specifically related to what was happening at Camp Devens, the surrounding towns, and Massachusetts. The book group is one activity that didn't slow down too much during the pandemic, since they were able to continue to meet virtually. The last books that they've read in this past year, you can see, were Last Stand of the Tin Can Soldiers, Killing Patton, Killing Crazy Horse, Battle of Britain, Dam Busters, and currently they are reading Blood and Treasure about Daniel Boone and the Indian Wars. As was mentioned by Steve during the financial report, we were lucky to receive a number of very generous grants over the past couple years, which helped relieve the strain that we felt with a decrease in visitation. We received a CARES Act grant from Mass Humanities and National Endowment of the Humanities. We received a COVID relief grant, two actually, from the Devens Enterprise Commission. We also received a grant from Free Fun Fridays, which was put on by the Highland Street Foundation. We received a nice donation from the town of Wellesley for participation in their Veterans Day parade. We also were able to secure two grants from Freedom's Way. One was part of a program they have called Creating and Enhancing Virtual Museums. And we were able to purchase a new camera with that money. So we're able to take video and more professional photos. They also gave us a project grant to cover expenses related to our Women in World War II exhibit, which I'll talk a little bit about in a few minutes. And we also received an Air Cultural Council grant that also went towards the Women in World War II exhibit. Oops. There we go. Sorry about that. A couple other highlights from the last couple years. We were featured in and on a couple different print and TV programs. There was an article in the fall 2019 issue of World War I Illustrated, which was written by one of our board members, David Gordon. We also appeared finally on an episode of Chronicle, which I believe was in the spring of 2019. There was an article about our Vietnam Living History Weekend in the December 2019 issue of Vietnam Magazine. And more recently, I spoke with someone who is creating an article for the Historical Journal of Massachusetts. I believe they said they hoped that that would be out this summer. We also had a short segment from WBUR on Boston and the 1918 epidemic. And of course, that came out right around the time that COVID was hitting the hardest. I also did an interview for Audrey.life, which is a blog and an app, which will be used by visitors. The idea is you use it driving in your car, and you can see all the sort of special sites of interest around you. So that'll be upcoming in the next few weeks as well. As far as what's new online with us, we have a new museum store with new apparel. We have a couple collections inventories that we posted online. These are units that were stationed at Devens throughout the years, and also an index of the panoramic photos that we have in our collection. We have our World War I diary collection digitized, and that's available online. And we're slowly getting those transcribed as well. So the transcription will be available at the same time. Our strategic plan that we developed a couple years ago is up online as well. And more recently, in cooperation with Freedom's Way Heritage Association, they created a heritage story, Edith North Rogers. So that's available for viewing as well. That's a short video about the life of Edith North Rogers and her contributions to the Army and to Veterans Affairs. As far as what's new in the museum, we have a couple new exhibits up. Most notably, we put on a small display of Brigadier General Albin Erzik, who was the commander of Fort Devens in the early 70s. His family has given us a number of his items that he had. And again, our Women in World War II exhibit. For Free Fun Fridays, we had 265 people that came from 54 Massachusetts towns. And you can see the other states that they came from: New Hampshire, Maine, Alabama, and Iowa. And I have mapped the towns in Massachusetts that they came from. So as we brought up earlier, our World War II Victory Dance that was held in March 2020 was a huge, huge hit. I think, we all had a lot of fun, and I'm glad that we were able to work that in before everything was being shut down. We had a great band, musicians, dancers, and so many people came, either in uniforms or in costumes appropriate to the time period. So as I said, I'm really hoping that this is something that we're going to be able to repeat in the future, because it was a great way to get people together and to get the name of the museum out there. As far as our most liked Facebook posts in 2020, we've got one that was a painting done by a POW who was here during World War II. As some of you may know, there was a POW camp between 1944 and 1946, and it held about 5,000 prisoners, mostly German. And we do have some of the artwork that they've left behind. We also had a visit from a young woman who is modeling one of our World War I vintage nurse uniforms, so you can see her there. And then we had a post about some items found in one of the last barracks at Fort Devens before it was torn down. As far as the post with the most engagements in the past year, 2021, on the left you can see a gold and blue star flag that belonged to the Iverson family of Lowell. I believe they had, let's see, 6 sons in the military, and eventually 2 of them did not come home. One of them was lost at sea, and another was killed in action in France. The mother of the boys actually passed away before the second son was killed, which is why there's 1 gold star there instead of 2. We had an inquiry from someone from Camp Middlesex in Ashby, and she had heard a story that some of their buildings had come from Camp Devens. So she was able to send us a few of the buildings, and we could do a little bit of research to see. And we think that some of them might have been World War I buildings that were moved from Devens and repurposed at some point. So again, sort of a fun connection, see where little bits of Devens have ended up over the years. Finally, we posted about a campaign hat that we received in our collection. But the interesting thing is that there was a label on the inside from Fletcher's, which some of you who have been in the area for a long time will remember was a store for many, many, many years on Main Street in Air. So that's sort of a neat local connection. So our Women in World War II exhibit opened in March, and we will be keeping it up through at least the end of August. And this was a great opportunity to kind of look at our collection and see what we had that would fit in. But we also borrowed a number of really great uniforms and other items from some other individuals and some other organizations as well. For those of you who have not had the opportunity to see the exhibit, we tried to focus on most of the different roles that women played during the war. So military, nursing, scouting, Red Cross, USO volunteers, and families on the home front doing their part as far as scrap drives go, and rationing and that sort of thing. So this is the largest temporary exhibit we've put up. I encourage everyone to come take a look at it if you have not seen it already. There's a lot of great local connections, uniforms worn by local women. And you might even see some names you recognize in there. So we were lucky, with the help of a few different individuals and organizations, we were able to put this up and honor the women of World War II. And that's it.